Welcome. We are live at this ElaadNL Webtalk. This is number 32. This is the fourth one we do in the English language. My name is Erik van Kaathoven. I work as a communications manager at ElaadNL. ElaadNL is the Knowledge and Innovation Center on the smart and sustainable charging of electric vehicles. And we are an initiative of the joint Dutch grid operators. Today our guest speaker is Tom Selten from Lightyear, the Dutch solar car company, and Tom will tell us all about long-range solar cars. You can put your questions in the question box, so please feel free to do so. We'll try to put as many questions as are sent in to Tom to answer. This web talk will also be recorded on YouTube and will be later available. And so, yeah, without further ado, let's start and let's give Tom the floor. Tom.
Yes, thanks, Eric. Thanks for the kind introduction. Yes, my name is Tom Selten. Working at Lightyear already for over 5 years. Very happy to be part of this journey. We are building a solar-powered family car. So as you can see on this slide, it's the Lightyear One, our first vehicle. And I want to tell you today something about how we started, where we're up to, and how we see the future as Lightyear. And as Eric mentioned, very much looking forward to your questions, and maybe even a bit of discussion on the future of mobility. But first of all, let me also say that I'm very happy to have Elaad as a partner for Lightyear. We are very happy to test together with them to make sure that we can offer the best charging experience to our customers. But let me start first with how I started at Lightyear, and it really started at the University of Eindhoven in 2012. The first solar team was founded in Eindhoven, and we were a bit crazy because we decided to build a car which could drive 4 persons. So as you can see on this slide, it's a solar car. It drives 4 persons, and we decided to not only build this vehicle but also to participate in the World Solar Challenge in Australia, which is a global competition for solar cars. And we envision to become a world champion as well. So not only showing the world that it's possible to drive on solar power, but also make sure that we can actually beat all the competition out there. And the World Solar Challenge is a competition worldwide. So a lot of universities participate there, MIT, Stanford, Chinese universities, Korean, all over the globe, compete in this challenge to make sure that they can build the best solar car out there. So it really started as a student competition, a challenge-driven competition. And as you can see here, I'm in the midst of this picture and smiling. This was before Australia, back in 2015, when we just unveiled our car called Stella Lux, which is the car we built in 1 year time. Not only with the student team, but also with a lot of companies supporting us. As you can see on the vehicle, we were used to work already with a lot of companies, and this also is the sort of the core belief of what Lightyear also currently is. Let me briefly introduce you to the solar challenge so that you understand where we come from. So it's a challenge 3,000 kilometers through the desert in Australia, from Darwin to Adelaide, and you need to drive with the most efficient way possible. So what's key in this challenge is that you're not only first in the competition, but you're also you take the most people with you. You be as practical as possible, so you need to have a practical car, and use the least amount of energy. And it's all about energy management. It's not only a World Solar Challenge in solar racing, but also in energy management. And we won in 2013, the first time. As you can see on this slide, we have the 3 cars here. In 2013, we became first world champion. Then second time, we became world champion with Stella Lux in 2015. That was the team which I participated in. In 2017, we became third time world champion. And in 2019, we have been world champion again. So 4 times in a row, we were a world champion. That's actually the basis also of our company, because we decided that if you are world champion, it basically means that, yeah, basically you are the best of the world. So nobody else is doing this and is doing this better than you. So that's actually one of the best reasons to start a company, if you are convinced that this is the right way forward. And we were, because during the challenge in 2015, there was a moment when we were driving through Australia, in the midst of Australia, and driving 70 kilometers per hour. And at that moment, the car was still charging. And I can assure you, if you have ever have experienced that you are driving in a car with 4 persons at cruising speed, 70 kilometers per hour, and you're still charging the battery, then you really understand the power of solar technology and really understand that this could be quite a solution to what we are currently facing, and in this energy transition. And it really showed us that it's already possible. And of course, it's in Australia. It's proprietary technology, so I wouldn't recommend you to drive in this vehicle on a daily basis. But still, if you can build this in 1 year with a group of students with help from the region, imagine what is possible when building a company based on this technology. So this was really the basis for us to start Lightyear. And then back in 2014, looking at all the headliners, it was really about Tesla all the way. Tesla became the best-selling stock in 2014, and if you look at the stock prices then, it was much lower than they were now. But still, there were a lot of reasons why Tesla wouldn't become what it is right now, and there were a lot of disbelievers. Of course, looking back in 2022, which we are now, we should have invested in Tesla because they were super successful. But still, this shows that there is a lot of room for improvement, and things can rapidly change over time. And when we started the company in 2016, we saw that these were the headlines. So electric cars won't go mainstream until we fix these problems. And said by the GM president in 2016, Mary Barra, it's about cost, it's about range, it's about charging. So you need to have a place to charge, and you also have to have the minimum time to charge, and sustainability needs to be guaranteed. So these 4 topics are should be fixed before electric cars go mainstream. And then I took also an article from last October mentioning that there is a lot of hassle in London, downtown London, to charge your electric car. So still, these problems are not solved yet, and different solutions are needed to solve these issues. If you look at the transition in which we are in the moment, and let me say we are still very much at the beginning of the transition. Only 20% of the car, 90% is actually EV if you look at the complete fleet. So we are really at the start of the transition. Although it might feel that the transition is in the midst, we are really in the start of it. And we believe that there's 3 tipping points which should be reached before electric cars can go mainstream. First of it is the range. You need to fix that. Then the purchase price. And you need to be able to find a charging spot in a minimum amount of time, but you also need to be able to charge your car in minimum amount of time, especially when you don't own a private parking spot. So these 3 problems need to be fixed before we can actually go mainstream. And then if you look at the problem which we are facing, or the challenge we are facing, we need to replace 1 billion cars globally. Actually, these are ICE vehicles and they need to be EV. There's a lot of focus on these new EVs which are coming on the roads, which are hitting the roads. Every week you see new companies announcing new vehicles, so there's a lot of focus on these cars. But in able to fuel these cars, we need charging stations, and of course, Elaad is very much into it. We need to install a lot of charging stations, and we need to do this in a smart way. But these charging stations also need to be fueled by clean electricity. Otherwise, yeah, you can drive an electric vehicle, but you wouldn't really do any good for the environment. So we need to increase and update our grids, and we need to replace power plants. So it's not a matter of just replacing the cars. you really need to completely shift to a new and upgraded energy system. Now, what we are doing as Lightyear is we are focusing on skipping the grid, so leapfrogging from grid to one integrated system. Is it possible to still hear me, Martijn, or not? I see some questions in the chat.
We have some difficulties, but
sorry.
it will work.
We had some issues, and sometimes the audio is gone for just a few seconds or perhaps more. We can hear you most of the time.
Okay. Yeah, maybe because of the Wi-Fi here in Madrid, it's not really stable. Currently on a business trip, but bear with me. If I'm not loud enough, then if I should repeat myself, then please ask me to do so. But basically, what I'm explaining here is that we want to leapfrog the grid, and there's a great analogy actually on what happened with mobile phones in a lot of spaces in Africa and India. Yesterday I was in the Middle East. They've experienced the same thing. They never had built telephone lines there. They just went from having no phone to a mobile phone. And we really believe this is possible with electric cars as well. That you can actually change from having no electricity grid or having no charging stations to an integrated system where you can actually charge your car using the sun and using your normal household power plug. So these actually are truly scalable cars. And of course, Lightyear is at the beginning. We are building a vehicle which is at the moment. But our vision and our future is that we want to build truly scalable cars through our technology. So we are primarily a technology company building vehicles to make sure that we don't need the electricity grid to power all vehicles. And of course, we need charging stations. We need to integrate vehicles in charging, but we can do this in a much smarter way. And from our perspective, convenience should be about speed and affordability. And I'm going to briefly tell you about how Lightyear actually works. So it's not about the solar part only. Much more than the solar, it's about energy usage. So we need to do two things. So one is to reduce the energy use by focusing on lightweight materials, so really focus to bring the weight of the car down. If you bring the weight of the car down, you enter into a lightweight cycle, because if you have a lower weight, you need less batteries to drive the same amount of range. If you have less batteries, you have lower weight. And this is what we call the optimization cycle for lightweight. And this can go quite far, actually, up until a point that you can also say we are putting the motors in the wheels of the vehicle. So we leave the drive shaft out and we put the motors in the wheels. This has tested before, and a lot of companies have used this in, for example, electric buses. But doing this in a way which is so super efficient as Lightyear is doing, that has never been done before. And because we have the motors in that side of the wheels, it's possible to have a bit more ground clearance and to have a super aerodynamic underbody, and of course an aerodynamic car, which improves our efficiency as well. So as you saw, we halve the energy use of a typical electric car. And that's the secret sauce of Lightyear. It's not only about solar, it's much more about energy efficiency in every detail of the vehicle. And then from the solar part, you should increase solar panel efficiency. So we work with SunPower, we use their cells, but we create our own panels. We are currently building a production facility in the Netherlands, in Van Rij, where we are going to produce solar panels on cars. Not only car roof, but also the bonnet and the tailgate of the vehicle. So we have 5 square meters of solar panel on the vehicle. And all these steps, if you go through them, then you will reach self-sustainability. But we're not there yet as Lightyear. This is our first car, but we truly believe that this vision can bring us to self-sustaining vehicles in the future for almost all use cases. And then summarizing, efficiency here is the key. So it's about aerodynamics, lightweight, powertrain efficiency. And these are also the areas in which Lightyear focuses on from a technology perspective. We have now over 50 patents already filed, almost 40 published, which are all about these aspects. And then something really interesting became about, and that's charging. Of course, prices from charging will remain a challenge. And we really believe that solar charging can add value because you can actually leave your car outside and the car will charge. And in a normal day, and especially here in Madrid, you will charge about 12 kilometers per hour during daytime. And if you compare that to normal EVs, they don't charge in the sun. And if you plug in a normal EV, say a Tesla Model S, which is already quite premium EV, into an ordinary power plug, you charge 17 kilometers per hour. If you plug the Lightyear into an ordinary power plug, then it charges 45 kilometers per hour. And what's super interesting is that if you compare this 45 kilometers per hour to the 50 kilometers per hour charging rate of the Tesla Model S on a normal charging station, 11 kilowatt charging station. And that's becoming really interesting because these figures are almost the same. So basically, Lightyear turns every ordinary power plug into a charging station. If you think further, we can also use street lanterns, for example, as charging stations. So why not? Why not use the electricity grid, which is already there for street lanterns, make plugs and charge cars from it? It's a different type of solution, but we need all solutions out there to accelerate this transition. So solar cars, and especially highly efficient cars as Lightyear, go really well hand in hand with solutions like street lamp charging. So this is not only about cars, it's really about changing a system. And if you look at Lightyear, we want to get as close as possible to what we are used to when driving ICE vehicles. And I think ICE vehicles and internal combustion engine cars, they are really about convenience. It's about paying not that much, like quite affordable car, and getting a lot of range for it. Like basically that's it. And you can actually charge in 2 minutes. That's the paradigm which we are in. If we think about a vehicle, then that's the convenience level we are at. And we at Lightyear, we really believe we should get as close as possible to that by focusing on efficiency. And the beauty about this efficiency is that it will always be there, right? So even if batteries improve, then we'll get still disadvantages in efficiency. So what would happen, for example, if batteries get twice the amount of energy density, then our range will also be doubled. So we'll keep this frontier if you compare that to the competition. And currently Tesla is also very much into energy efficiency. They're improving their energy efficiency by 3% per year. But that will mean actually, if you see where we are now, that we still have more than an 8-year head start towards Tesla. So as Lightyear, we better be quick, but we still have a huge head start compared to the competition. And here are some videos or pictures of the Lightyear One driving around. Last summer, we've tested the vehicle with this camouflage colors on the road, and we showed that it's actually possible to drive 720 kilometers on a single battery charge. And we have a energy consumption of 8.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And if you compare that, for example, to a Tesla, they are now with the Model 3 at 14 kilowatt hours, the Model S is at 16. So we really do have twice the amount of the efficiency. And if you see the winter test, of course, we need to show real figures. So at the highway speed, 5 degrees outside, we still have 14 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer, and we offer a 400 kilometer range with the Lightyear One. Then it's not about just building a car, it's really about building a company. It's all about the people. We are on a mission to make sure that it's possible to drive on solar power, and we cannot do that alone. So we grew our company quite quickly. We are now at almost 350 employees at the moment working at Lightyear. Of course, a lot of ecosystem partners like Elaad helping us out on the charging perspective. This is a sneak peek from our company. It's already a year ago, I think, that we took this picture, or it should be before COVID, I think, looking at the wearing no mouth mask. But this is actually we I think doubled the size already. Also last year we signed with Valmet Automotive. This is a picture with the directors of Valmet. They're going to produce our cars. So the first cars, the Lightyear Ones, will be produced in Finland. We'll hit the road after the summer. We'll get the first cars from Finland delivered in the Netherlands. The first car actually will put on the license plate in this summer. We have agreed there with the road authorities here in the Netherlands. So we will hit the road this year with Lightyear after 6 years of development. Let me quickly skip to this one. I think it's very important also to highlight that in the Netherlands we do not have a strong automotive industry. That's what you would say, but we have a lot of tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers, and we have actually a lot of knowledge. We are the smartest square kilometer in the world as it comes to patents in the Netherlands. So we have a complete ecosystem actually built up already for tech companies like Lightyear. And we very much benefit from having ASML, Philips, NXP, DAF, and VDL in our neighborhood in the Brainport region. And as said, we didn't do it alone, so we work together with a lot of ecosystem partners. If you compare Lightyear to Tesla, we much more are vertically or horizontally oriented. So we say we focus on the core technologies and we outsource, for example, the battery pack production. We outsource manufacturing and assembly. We outsource distribution and we outsource service. So for example, one of our partners is Belron. It's the parent company of Carglass. And Carglass actually is going to repair our solar panels. So if you have a stone chip on your solar panel, the car will detect it and Carglass will repair it. So it's we should focus on much more horizontal integration than Tesla is doing. If you look at the core technologies, then we have developed the solar array ourselves. It's a double curved, so it's curved in two orientations. It's also automotive tested, so it's actually tested against automotive standards. And I can assure you there are not a lot of panels out there which are tested for pedestrian impact. So that's quite a specific technology we have been developing and already deploying on several vehicles. So we deployed the solar technology on several Model 3, which are currently driving around and having already more than a year of data for us, so that we can actually prove that it's possible to have a Lightyear also solar powered. We can actually walk on the panels, so it's quite stiff, as you can imagine. And we are going to produce these solar panels starting from next year in Venray, where we have purchased a production facility, 3,000 square meters, where we are going to assemble these panels, not only for the Lightyear, also potentially to other interested partners. We are in contact with a lot of OEM in this stage. And next to the solar technology, we do focus a lot on motors, so in-wheel motors. This is an exploded view of our in-wheel motor. Here you see the in-wheel motor sitting in the vehicle. And this is a technology which is proven. And so in-wheel motors are actually around there for a long time, but not in the volume to power ratio as we now did. So this is, although it's an old technology, I would say, we optimize personal cars, our technology. Then we are currently the most aerodynamic 4C production car, and which we are kind of proud of. We make sure that it was quite a stretch to get here, but we managed. And next is the Lightyear One. Next, on a base price, we get the Lightyear 2 on the road, which is going to be our mass market model. That was it from my side. Very much interested to the questions, and I hope that you got some from my story. Sorry for the delays. I'm currently in Madrid.
Yeah, thank you.
So it might the hotel Wi-Fi might not be that good, but I hope you can catch the story. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tom. Yes, we had some technical issues. Most of the time the program corrected it, and we could still hear what you were saying just a few seconds later. But perhaps some things got a little bit lost in the technical issues. And you have also, I guess you have switched off your camera to have a better connection, I guess, or not? Or can we see you?
Indeed.
Okay. So let's do some question and answers after this. Very interesting presentation, but also very interesting developments you were talking about. So for the first thing, you see, and you started with your presentation about this also, a lot of Dutch teams, they win these solar races, like in Australia, but last year in Morocco also, another team. Yes. Why are we so good at this in the Netherlands?
Yeah, good question, Eric. I think it is not because of the sunny weather. I think it's because we are, as a country, we are super efficient. So we are, I think, number 2 food exporter of the world. That's crazy if you look at our land, our land. So we are used to get very efficient. And We are really good system thinkers. If you look at ASML, the company I mentioned in the presentation, they arguably built one of the most complex systems on global scale. So we learned a lot from that company how to build a system. I guess we were just quite lucky to have so many brilliant universities become world champion. But sort of the core motives needed to build a solar car are present in our country. And if a solar car can work in the Netherlands, I can assure you there are a lot of companies or a lot of countries in which it will work, especially here, for example, in Spain. We experience so much interest now in our technology. Yeah, it's maybe that's the best answer. So if it works in the Netherlands, it works everywhere, and that's why we should start in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I think you're now in Spain.
Yeah.
So another obvious question is, of course, how a solar car can do in southern countries like Spain, but also how will it perform in the Netherlands? You already talked about that, but perhaps even in more northern countries like Norway. What are your expectations on this?
Yeah, so basically, if you leave the solar out, you still are left with a super efficient car. And I really believe that efficiency is the way forward. So it's not about performance in terms of acceleration, top speed. It's much more about getting the most out of the battery, because if you can actually if you're able to drive your car in level 3 autonomy on the highway, for example. So imagine having your hands off the wheel and driving around, then you don't really care about top speed and not about acceleration. As a matter of fact, you don't want acceleration if your car drives autonomous. So we really believe that efficiency is the way forward. For some countries, solar will do, definitely. But maybe for some countries, the efficiency is just already enough to have a very competitive car. So it might be that in the future we will offer Lightyear One vehicles without the solar roof and with, but you're still left with a super efficient car. So and the solar part, especially in Spain, but also in the Netherlands, it generates up to 7,000 kilometers of range with normal usage. So then we already account for 30% when you park it in the shadows. In Spain, it's more than 11,000 kilometers, which you will generate from the solar roof. So the solar roof is much more of a sort of portable charger, which actually decreases your charging frequency even more. So I would always opt for it, but of course you can have a Lightyear without it. Then you're left with the most efficient car in the world. So still, it's a good idea.
Well, that's interesting, and a little bit in line with this. If I look at my solar panels at the rooftop, not on my car, but on the rooftop, I see a fairly large seasonal effect. Probably the same with the yield from the solar panels on the car.
Sure.
What are your expectations on this, on the seasonal effect? I have no audio at the moment.
The seasonal effect. Can you hear me, Eric?
Yes. Now again. Yes.
Does it work?
Yeah, we can hear you,
Okay.
but we did not get the,
no, I think the
answer. Oh.
Okay, yeah. So so the seasonal effect indeed is very, very important. In the Netherlands, we have a huge seasonal effect. So in the summer, there's a lot of. In summer, basically, you don't need to charge a Lightyear with normal usage. In winter, you do charge it, so you need to have, but you need to charge much less compared to standard EVs. So the closer you get to the equator, the more the seasonal effect is balanced out of the equation, sort of.
Of course.
So I would imagine in countries closer to the equator, solar cars will be more popular. But at the same time, you're left with the most efficient EV. So definitely, less charging is always more convenient, I would say. If you don't have a private parking spot. If you have a private parking spot, looking at all the developments in smart charging and using your car as a home battery, that might be then it might be actually convenient to charge or actually plug in your car every night, and then it also costs you 1 second. But for example, myself, I live in an apartment in Den Bosch. I'm not allowed to charge my electric car in the basement. I'm fully reliant on public charging, and more actually a lot of charges are occupied EVs. I experience more and more that which bothers me a lot. So plug-in hybrids, they charge at charging stations, occupying it for fully electric. Yeah, having a car which needs to charge much less would be a great solution for me.
Yeah, and talking about parking, of course nowadays lots of cars are parked inside or also in shade of trees, for example. Will the whole way of thinking about parking spaces change if we have more and more solar cars?
Yeah, I hope cars will be more utilized, so that we see actually less cars. That would be great. That you get more sharing opportunities. But indeed, I think looking at, we were talking a lot lately to someone who owns parking lots in inner cities, and I think you can already go where understand what I'm saying. But if you look at the top level of these parking garages, then it's super interesting for Lightyear to occupy the whole rooftop of these parking stations. So yeah, we will see some different kind of parking when there are more Lightyears on the road. But I hope as Lightyear that we also are going to offer our customers more and more sharing opportunities, so that your car gets utilized more and more, which is beneficial for us actually as a company, because our incentive is to drive as many solar kilometers as possible, with the vehicle. So our incentive is to build a car which can drive up to 1 million kilometers without breaking down. And it's of course we need to have a business model for Lightyear where we are incentivized not to build as many cars as possible, but to build as many cars which drive as many kilometers as possible. And this is something different. So business models like Link & Co, for example, are super interesting, which utilize this. And this is sort of in the vision of Thomas Rau, an architect who thought about light as a service, and I really like that. We as Lightyear should also go much more into this. So of being able to build a vehicle which can drive a lot of kilometers, and that maybe even Lightyear remains owner of the vehicle and actually purchase back the car if you as a customer are not using it anymore. Or so we need to transit from being an OEM to much more of a mobility provider in the future. That's what I believe.
Thank you. Of course, you talk about Lightyear. There are some other companies making or developing a solar car. Are those like partners for you or more competition, like the Sono, for example, in Germany?
Yeah, so Sono is a great, yeah, sort of, I wouldn't say partner. We don't do development together, but they are kind of a competitor, you could say. But the industry is still quite young. It's really starting up. Myself, I founded a alliance for solar mobility together with Lars Lulle from Sono, and we want to combine the industry in an association for solar cars, for solar mobility. Not only solar cars, but also trucks, boats, whatever. Every modality which solar power, we want to have in an alliance to make sure that we can actually strive for regulations which help get more and more solar deployment on vehicles. So Sono is a partner. They're doing something in that sense, but we don't develop with them. They're doing something different. They more focus on the solar part and less on the efficiency part. But for us, it's efficiency first, solar second, and for solar first, efficiency second. So we are a bit. If you look at another competitor in US, Aptera, they build a super sleek two-seater, Aptera motors, and they are super efficient, but I wouldn't say they're a car. They're more like a city transportation device for two persons. Yeah, it's interesting to see these developments. I'm very much looking forward to have more competitors in this space.
Okay, thank you. So if you get, for example, in Spain, but also in Netherlands in the summer, you can easily get, as I understand, more sun, more power than you drive the miles.
Yeah.
What do you do with that extra energy? And will vehicle to grid or vehicle to X, to whatever, to home, to other things, will that be the standard in solar cars?
Yeah, definitely. So vehicle to whatever is is a great one, I think. That's very much what we believe. So the car can be discharged already. So the Lightyear One will be able to discharge on DC. Our second model will be able to also discharge on AC. We are getting more and more involved in alliances like Charian to get because we see the car as not a unit which you just drive in, but when the car is in idle state. For example, last week I was flying to Abu Dhabi and I saw this a huge parkings where I think more than 100, maybe 10,000 vehicles are parked. What if they were solar cars, right? So you would have a huge, massive solar field, sort of, which could feed back electricity to the airport. And currently, these cars are all heating up. They're just from metal. So costs of solar are going to decline every year. So it makes so much sense to have much more solar deployments on machines which use energy. Yeah, so 100% it's going to be integrated in the electricity system. Also 100% that it's going to be more and more decentralized. And hopefully we can also get towards payment, peer-to-peer payment transactions. These are insanely powerful businesses.
Yeah, that's also an interesting aspect, of course. How will that work? Let's put some questions coming into you, Tom. Sai Pavan Nandijam, I'm not pronouncing it properly, but asks, will Lightyear have their own charging infrastructure, or are the cars compatible with other public charging stations? Tom.
Yeah, so we are compatible with other charging stations. We have no plans at the moment to build our own charging infrastructure. We do partner up with street lamp chargers, so we are huge fans of using existing infrastructure, and that's our belief. So our core belief is don't upgrade too much the existing infrastructure, but focus on making the car much less using the infrastructure because it's much more scalable. What we believe is that we should make sure that we can be more efficient as a car, and then we can use even lower power sockets, so household plugs, street lanterns, and that's something which you learn if you drive an EV, that you don't need to have this 100% charge every time. You can also do with 70 or 80. So be able to charge almost everywhere on every sort of plug. That's sort of our dream, and also that you can actually discharge your car using a normal household power plug would be insane if that happens in the future. So this is much more our focus than developing or owning our own charging infrastructure. But yeah, good question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the answer. So we got a few people, Paul Bros and Jack Bouwman, asking about the WLTP range. And should this be especially a new norm for solar energy cars? Because of course the sun isn't always at its peak.
Yeah, no, very good question. So solar is not currently into WLTP. WLTP basically is a drive cycle, right? So it's a drive cycle, and it doesn't account for solar irradiance. So this WLTP range is without solar, so solar is on top, and it's also difficult to. So how would you communicate? I would maybe ask a question back. So how would you do it? So how would you would like to have solar range being so for example, you can do it on annual basis. You can say like, okay, 70,000 kilometers on annual basis. You can communicate on average per day, but yeah, you never have an average day, right?
Yeah,
it's
I
still something
guess
we
you should do some scenarios, I guess, because the difference also with a normal EV between winter and summer is rather large, and you get the addition of when the sun doesn't shine. Of course, sometimes in the winter the sun also shines.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are currently in a working group, in a global working group, working on how to integrate solar into sort of range estimations and how to communicate that, how to standardize that. So interesting topic, because currently there is no standardized way of measuring how many yield a solar panel on a car could generate. We have for household roofs, it's called STC, standardized test condition, but it's not for solar, or not for vehicles yet. So as in this Alliance for Solar Mobility, in which we founded with ASIM, we are actively advocating and pushing this.
Okay. Another question some people are asking, like Igor de Liefde, is when do you expect the Lightyear to be available on the market, and in a rather production style numbers?
Yeah, so high volume is going to be end of 2024. You have to wait a bit, but
yeah, and those first ones this summer, that's just a few, I guess, or how many can we think about then?
From the Lightyear One, we are going to produce less than 1,000. First one will be this summer, and then we are going to produce up until 946 from 2023 to 2024. And then from 2024 onwards, we are going to focus on the production of the second model. So the production ramp up starts 2024 for the second model. Base price there is 30K.
Okay, thank you. Question from Heike van de Vecht. What is the main barrier to overcome? What are the main challenges?
Yeah, so I think if you look at solar EVs in general, we are like where EVs were 10 years ago, and it takes a while before people get used to the fact that we are not going to drive ICEs anymore, right? So it's of course we want to drive sustainably, but it doesn't need to go without convenience, and convenience is also paying a decent price, right? So I'm the first one to say that we are building a very exclusive car at the moment. That's our strategy, because we need to first develop a technology. We need to invest so heavily, and going from 0 to 100,000 is incredibly difficult. So that's why we took this step to build first the Lightyear One, to make sure that we can show the technology it works. We can learn so much from it, and then to do the second step to Lightyear 2. But the biggest barrier really is that there are no solar EVs out there yet. We are building our own supply chain. We are setting our own standards. We are there is no policy for solar cars. There is no definition even for a solar car, a solar electric vehicle. This year, the Netherlands, the government of the Netherlands was the first globally to have a solar electric vehicle definition adopted, which is quite an achievement already by the Dutch government. But we should do this globally, right? So there's not a lot of awareness. So it's really this is the biggest barrier, that there's actually the fact that we are the first. It also gives us the largest opportunity. So therefore we try to accelerate as fast as possible. and to make sure that we can provide all of you with an Lightyear 2 as soon as possible.
That would be nice. One or two more questions, and then we'll end this webinar. Another one from Igor de Liefde is, what about the comfort? Because if you want to be very efficient, sometimes you lose comfort. How do you deal with that at Lightyear?
I think the car is the Lightyear One is really comfortable. I think the Lightyear 2 as well. The reason why is that a car is quite complex, or quite not so complex, or quite simple actually. It has a powertrain which is in the wheels without any gear shaft, so we have quite an amount of space in the vehicle. Actually, our car has the same amount of cargo volume as an SUV. So, and of course, you have a very low gravity point because the battery is as every car, of course, at the moment in the bottom, but also the wheels are the motors basically. So the driving dynamics are feel like a sports car, but you're driving in sort of an SUV cargo space vehicle. So I would rather invite you to our facilities, Ivo, and experience it yourselves. But I think the car is quite comfortable to sit in. I would definitely recommend it to take it on a road trip. So basically, that's in a sense, we are building new technology, which is super expensive, and so much challenges come with building this new technology. But the essence of it is that it's super simple, because you leave out so many mechanical components, so that it's therefore also extremely scalable. So therefore, we think that the future is definitely solar powered.
Yeah. Well, that's a great one to finish this this webinar. Also, what are your ideas? What are your expectations in about 10 years with regard to solar cars? Last question.
We're going to see a lot of solar cars on the roads, not only by Lightyear, but also by a lot of other companies. I think it's so logical if you think about it. Solar panels, solar cells get more affordable. They also get more efficient. So we are now testing technologies with which are up to 30% efficiency. And you would say, yeah, 30% is not that much, but currently we are at 22, so that's almost a 50% increase. Now, 50% increase means 50% more range from your solar panel. So that's really decent. So definitely it's going to be very interesting decade. There are going to be a lot of EVs out there. There are going to be a lot of solar EVs out there, and I hope that our dream can become true, that we can actually deliver clean mobility in a lot of countries who do not have decent grids at this moment. That's sort of our core belief, that we're going to be there. But yeah, we focus on this year. So this year, the first cars on the road, make sure that we can drive the technology, make sure that we can actually get more and more awareness, not only in the Netherlands, but also European and on a global scale. So it's going to be an amazing journey.
Great. So some last closing statement from me. Very much thanks to Tom for his presentation and the answering of all the questions. Tom, can you try to put your webcam on for a moment to say goodbye to everyone, if it's possible?
Let's see.
Okay, there he is. So our next web talk is in 2 weeks' time, and it's the 10th of March. And it's also in English, so also international audience and attendees can join us. It's about inductive charging of electric vehicles, and we talk with Pavel Bauer and Jianing Dong from the Delft University of Technology. This web talk will also be held in English, I already told you, and we love to see you again then. And for Tom, also, we have one in the planning about street lamp charging.
Great.
That one will be in Dutch, and it's a few weeks more time. This web talk will soon be available on YouTube. Thanks again, everyone, and hope to see you on March 10th, same place, same time. Thank you, and thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Jer.